Hello again, you're watching World Talks on TVP World, and I'm Anna Kalczyńska. Poland is making its biggest ever investment in cybersecurity. Nearly 730 million euro will be spent this year to strengthen digital defenses across government, local authorities and key industries. Since the beginning of the full-scale war in Ukraine, the cyber domain has been under the biggest pressure. Only last year, Poland recorded over 111,000 cybersecurity incidents and 23% increase year on year. Joining me to discuss the potential development of this cyber war is Louis Wierenga, lecturer in international relations, Baltic Defence College. Good morning and thank you for joining us again.
Good morning, Anna. Pleasure to be with you.
So just a few days ago, a Russian Space Force base located in a town called Pionersky in the Kaliningrad exclave was revealed as the source of GPS jamming over the Baltic Sea. The installation in Pionersky was finalized in 2023, which is also when major GPS interference began in the region. What legal tools are at disposal of a country under cyber attack like Poland?
Well, that's a question to ask legal analysts for sure, because the cyber domain is increasingly important, as you just highlighted, and it cuts amongst all of the, as we would say in military speak, domains. So air, land, maritime, and of course space. And it's a little bit harder to attribute attacks, that's one thing, and also the target of a cyber attack never really has the upper hand. That's always the aggressor. And of course, we've seen these attacks from until back in 2007 in the region, but of course they've upped the ante. The Russians have, after their full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, and in 2023 in the summer, GPS and GNSS disturbances have been recorded in the Baltic Sea region more and more. And what the kind of synopsis of that is that the Russians are trying to protect their military and vital infrastructure sites from attacks that Ukraine is carrying out in order to, fend off the aggression that's being perpetrated against them. But also, I think we have to see this as Russia constantly, not that they have to, but constantly trying to remind the Baltic states and Poland that they're in the region and that they can do these types of things, and that they'll continue to do them because A, it gauges the response of allied countries. How do they respond? What are the measures? How are they communicating with allies? How are they communicating with the European Union, for example? And also just sort of being a dissonance rather, and sort of keeping up this aggression, and it's likely not going to go away because it's increased in severity and intensity in the past couple of years, unfortunately.
Well, obviously the malign technological interference targets primarily the military. So how are the military prepared to deal with Russian interference, and what are the consequences of jamming and spoofing GPS systems?
Well, the consequences are that it makes the alliance stronger, which is not a bad thing. That is something that you have across the board allied cohesion when it comes to this. Estonia and 12 other EU member states have called on the Commission to respond to interference, and also that's something that NATO is looking at very heavily, as are internal security services in countries and the military. And so they do have mechanisms where they can communicate with allies, not about every single thing. A lot of that is of course classified, but there are ways to sort of, I think we're getting with technology slightly better with attribution, and we're getting slightly better at making sure that defenses are bolstered prior to an attack happening, because of course each one is different. So I would say that from a political strategic standpoint, everybody's aware of the problem. Everybody's aware that the problem will persist, and so now we have to get keep going, keep the keep the progress going in terms of development, but also in terms of communication and sort of an allied effort. And of course, one of the reasons that this is perpetrated against allied countries is, yes, there is a mechanism that NATO has said that Article 5 can be triggered by a cyber attack, but then the likelihood of something like this actually happening, most people think about the kinetic aspect of that. So I think that everything is on the table, and the one thing that I will say is that alliance cohesion is continuing to get stronger as the situation between Russia and Ukraine continues to play out. Europe knows that in order to be, a global Europe, you have to be able to have regional stability, and that is the main issue, I would say, going forward with Friday's talks between President Trump and Putin.
Exactly. Plus, you've mentioned, it's very difficult to attribute, right, and to prove that it's been that the source has been, for instance, in Russia. However, Poland is not the only affected country that is ready to spend big to counter the threat. Estonia also aims to increase its drone capabilities. Is there a possibility of one unified policy within NATO in the context of cybersecurity?
We're getting there. I mean, usually it is at the national level, and I think it will remain at the national level first and foremost. And there may be those who would disagree with me, but I think that as technology continues to advance at a very, very rapid pace, and as the need for NATO becomes stronger and stronger, that these discussions will happen, and they will happen in the security environment that necessitates this type of thing. So, of course, a lot of spending is being done by the vast majority of allied nations to, include, but is certainly not limited to the cyber aspect, because getting back to what I mentioned about multi-domain, cyber is not a separate domain. It cuts across all of them. So each of the military domains can and will be affected by cybersecurity issues. So I think that we are getting there, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. It might not happen by the time we have the next NATO summit, but I think that discussion will definitely continue as technology penetrates the security environment, in addition to other aspects, with every second that passes.
Experts believe that the system developed by Russia is still in a initial phase, so it remains to be seen what could be the Russian long-term strategy in this respect. But let me now jump now to the latest development in the ceasefire negotiations between Ukraine and Russia. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk speaks of fears and hopes ahead of the meeting in Alaska. How about you? What is your expectation?
Well, there's a lot of I would say mixed opinions that are on one side or the other. I would say the biggest talk is about land, and to use the term, I don't like the term, but the term land swapping, is that going to be part of the deal? Because President Trump has said that, he used that terminology that he would discuss with Vladimir Putin, land swapping in Alaska, and certainly all eyes are going to be on Alaska this Friday. And the language that is used, of course, is important, but you also have to understand the individual personalities and the position of the administration. So, for example, the president has said that an agreement, if they make an agreement on Friday, would include, quote unquote, good stuff, not bad stuff, but also some bad stuff for both. And I think that if you look back to the beginning of the second term of even before the second term of the Trump presidency, he said he wants the killing to stop. He has then expressed frustration with Vladimir Putin, who was going into the quote unquote peace talks while still doing some of the most violent and aggressive actions towards Ukraine that you can possibly imagine, which indicates to anybody that he doesn't really want peace talks. But at some point in time, something is going to have to give, because nobody's going to get what they want. So somebody will have to be very, very forceful, and it really depends on who has the most chips. And the Ukrainian president, President Zelensky, has said, we are under no conditions ceding territory, and President Trump has said that the next meeting, not in Alaska on Friday, but after that, will include either Zelensky and Putin or the three of them. President Putin has said that he won't meet with President Zelensky. So I think that this it could potentially be the turning point, because President Trump and Putin are meeting face to face. And, a lot of talk has been about where the meeting is happening, and it's happening in land that the United States purchased from Russia in the 1800s. And is that significant, or is it just geographically close? I think that does send a message that, about land. And of course, one of the things about the Trump administration and President Trump himself is that he does not tilt his strategic hand very often. So you have to look at the rhetoric and then sort of the consistency or lack thereof to put the pieces together. But the fact that they're meeting for the first time in this presidency is, I think, really something. And of course, as I mentioned, all eyes are going to be watching the outcome of this. And the outcome may very well be that there is no outcome.
Could be, of course. But for sure, it's the first such a high-profile meeting between the US and Russia presidents, so we will be watching closely. Thank you so much for your insights and comments today, Louis Wierenga, lecturer in International Relations, Baltic Defence College.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
You as well, Anna.
Thank you so much for being with us here on World Talks. Please stay tuned to TVP World for the latest.